Lose yourself tonight. Let the beauty set you free. Let the music set you free. Oh yeah. Take a break from life. Won't you come and spend some time?
Here we are back outside where I keep my acid. I've stopped out the whole plate, so the only thing that's open to the acid is the area where the feather is. Now I want this to bite quite a little bit deeper than the line, so I'm going to leave it in the acid for about 20 minutes. Ferric chloride is great in the way that as long as you know the strength of your acid, you also know for how many minutes your plate should be in. And I know that I'm around 35 bone, so 20 minutes is going to do this plate really good. Before we start, of course, I need to put on my safety equipment. Ferric chloride doesn't have a whole lot of fumes, and it's not so corrosive as many other acids, but of course you want to be absolutely sure that it doesn't damage your skin or anything like that. I've also put a strip of tape on the back of the plate simply because it makes it easier to get it in and out of the acid. Just a normal little alarm clock, and I'm going to look at that, and I'm going to take my 20 minutes and I think go have a cup of coffee. Ten minutes of our time has gone, and so I tend to come back out, and with the help of the strip of tape on the back, I rock the plate a little bit. Now ferric chloride bites the acid in such a way that you get sediment, and a lot of people say that that sediment, if you etch the plate the right side up, sits in the line, and other people say that that's just a myth, and that you don't have to rock or anything like that. And yet more people again say that you should be etching your plate upside down so that sediment falls out of the line. I've kind of decided on some sort of middle way, so I come out and I rock my plate. If I do a big plate and I'm going to have it in for a very long time, every 20 minutes I might even come out and I'll wash it under the tap, for example, just to be sure that I get a nice and even line. Okay, so another 10 minutes to go and we'll meet you back here. All right, the 20 minutes are up, and I'm going to take my plate out of the acid. Hold it a bit like this so most of the acid runs off. Transfer it over to my tray, and I bring it over to the tap. Remember to wash the acid off on the back of the plate, okay? And I remove the strip of tape because acid tends to gather under that. There we go, the plate is clean. And I'm going to go back in the studio, clean it off, and we're going to proof it. We're back in the studio. I'm going to clean the ground off the plate with a bit of turpentine. I'm going to ink it up, and we're going to do a couple of proofs. If you find that the ink is a little bit too stiff, you just add a couple of drops of linseed oil. Now you really don't want the ink to be too loose either, because then it'll just come right out of the line. I use a scraper and I scrape the ink over the plate, making sure that it works into the line. Don't put too much ink on because it just makes things very messy. You can always go back and add a little bit more if you want to. Once I've scraped the plate, I go over it with a bit of a dabber. The dabbers are made from old scrim cloth from the old tarlatan. And again, I make sure that not only do I work the ink into the line, but I also have a nice and even coverage of ink on the plate. Big ball of scrim, tarlatan, and I clean up my plate. I know it looks as if I'm wiping quite hard, but actually I'm not. I am letting the tarlatan do all the work for me. Once in a while, you know, whoosh it out a little bit so it's nice and loose. Be quite gentle when you go over the feather. Remember, this is not a very deep bite, so you don't want to take too much of the ink out of the line. So I've inked the plate up, and I'm going to go and proof it, see what it looks like. I'm going to put the plate back on the press, ready to be proofed, and then I'm going to go and get my paper. Printmaking paper is very soft paper, and it has to be wetted. In the first film in this series, I show you how to deal with the printmaking paper. I'm going to hang it up so the excess water can run off. Once the excess water has run off, I put it on my towels and I blot it between the towels. I want the paper to be damp, but I don't want any wet spots or too much wetness on it, just nice and damp so it can be pressed down into the line and take the ink. I place the paper on top of my plate, put the blankets down, and I pull it through. And we are going to get to have a look at what the feather looks like. And there it is. That came out very nice, actually. Yep, I'm quite happy with that. So there you go, we're finished with part 2 of this 3-part series. In the first film, we put on the line etching. In the second, we've just finished adding the feather in the technique of soft ground. And in the third film, I'm going to show you how with the help of aquatint, I can add all my shading from my lightest grays to my darkest darks. See you then.
I'm alive. Won't you come and spend some time?